Imagine this. It's 1932. The Australian outback stretches for miles, a vast, sun-scorched landscape. Soldiers, veterans of the Great War, are setting up their Lewis machine guns. Their target, not a human enemy, but a foe far more unpredictable. Across the plains, thousands of large, flightless birds are gathering. This isn't a nature documentary. This is a declaration of war. Australia versus emus. Welcome to one of the most bizarre and unbelievable chapters in military history, the Great Emu War. To understand how Australia ended up in a conflict with its own national bird, we have to go back to the Great Depression. The world's economy had collapsed, and life was tough, especially for the farmers of Western Australia. Many were ex-soldiers, given land by the government after World War I, encouraged to start new lives by cultivating wheat. They poured their blood, sweat, and savings into the land, hoping for a decent harvest. But as if the economic hardship wasn't enough, they faced another, more feathered problem. Every year after their breeding season, about 20,000 emus would migrate from the inland regions to the coast, searching for food and water. And what did they find? Miles upon miles of lush, irrigated wheat fields neatly fenced and ready for the taking. For the emus, it was a paradise, an all-you-can-eat buffet. For the farmers, it was a nightmare. The giant birds, standing nearly 2 meters tall, would trample fences as if they were made of toothpicks, and devour or destroy entire crops in a single raid. These farmers were desperate. They watched their livelihoods being eaten, quite literally, right in front of them. Facing financial ruin, a delegation of these ex-soldier farmers approached the Australian government with an unusual request. They knew how to handle a rifle, but this was a different kind of invasion. They needed firepower. Big firepower. Specifically, they requested the use of machine guns. Given that these men were war veterans, their plea was taken seriously. The Minister of Defense, Sir George Pearce, saw an opportunity. It would be great target practice for the troops and a fantastic bit of public relations, showing the government supporting its struggling farmers. So, he agreed. The Royal Australian Artillery was deployed. Major GPW Meredith of the 7th Heavy Battery was put in charge of the operation. He arrived in the Campion district with 2 soldiers, Sergeant S. McMurray and Gunner J. O'Halloran. Their arsenal, to state-of-the-art Lewis machine guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition. They also had a truck to help them move quickly and pursue the enemy. The plan seemed simple. Herd the emus into a confined area and let the machine guns do the rest. The soldiers were confident. How hard could it be? They were trained men with superior technology facing off against, well, birds. The first engagement took place on November 2nd. The soldiers spotted a flock of about 50 emus. Local settlers tried to herd the birds into an ambush, but the emus were smarter than they looked. They split into small groups and scattered in all directions, making them incredibly difficult targets. The Lewis guns opened fire, but the birds' erratic movements and sheer speed made hitting them a challenge. Ah! After a burst of gunfire, the flock had dispersed, with only a number of birds killed. It wasn't the decisive victory they had hoped for. A few days later, Major Meredith planned a more ambitious ambush near a local dam, where over 1,000 emus had been spotted. The gunners waited patiently. As the birds approached, they opened fire. This was it, the moment of truth. But then, disaster struck. The machine gun jammed after just a dozen rounds. Before they could fix it, the 1,000-strong emu army had vanished over the horizon, leaving only a handful of casualties behind. The soldiers were stunned. These birds weren't just fast. They were tactical geniuses. Major Meredith later noted in his report that if they had a military division with the same bullet-carrying capacity as these birds, they would face any army in the world. He observed that each emu flock seemed to have a leader, a big, black-plumed bird that would stand watch while the others caused havoc, giving a warning call at the first sign of danger, allowing the flock to scatter. The soldiers were being outsmarted. Their next tactic was even more desperate. They mounted one of the Lewis guns onto their truck. The idea was to chase the emus down, firing from the moving vehicle. What followed was pure chaos. The truck bounced violently over the rough, uneven terrain of the outback, making it impossible to aim. The gunner couldn't get a steady shot, and the truck couldn't keep up with the birds, who could reach speeds of up to 50 kilometers per hour. To add insult to injury, the emus seemed to be toying with them. At one point, a single emu ran alongside the truck for a considerable distance, just out of range, before effortlessly veering off into the bush. The soldiers were exhausted, frustrated, and running low on ammunition. The birds were simply too fast, too resilient, and too clever. After nearly a week of this absurdity, the first phase of the war was called off. The military had fired 2,500 rounds of ammunition to kill, by some estimates, maybe 50 to 200 emus. It was a complete and utter failure. News of the army's embarrassing defeat spread like wildfire. The media had a field day. Newspapers across the country, and even around the world, ran headlines mocking the Australian military. Political cartoons depicted soldiers surrendering to giant, smug-looking emus. One politician in the Australian Parliament sarcastically asked if a medal would be awarded to the gunners. The public image of the military was taking a serious hit. The Great Emu War had become a national joke. Major Meredith and his men were ordered to withdraw. The war, it seemed, was over. The emus had won. But the farmers' problems hadn't gone away. In fact, with the army gone, the emu raids intensified. Desperate once again, the farmers renewed their pleas for help. Despite the public humiliation, the government relented and sent Major Meredith back into the field for a second attempt. This time, they claimed to have more success. The military reported killing nearly 1,000 emus with just under 10,000 rounds. However, the overall emu population remained strong. By December 1932, the military officially withdrew for good. The war was definitively over. So who really won? Well, when you look at the numbers, it's pretty clear. The Australian government had deployed its army, spent resources, and fired thousands of bullets, only to be outmaneuvered by a flock of birds. The emus continued to thrive, and the farmers were eventually offered a bounty system, which proved to be far more effective in controlling the population. The Great Emu War stands as a testament to nature's resilience and a hilarious, humbling reminder that sometimes, even with all the firepower in the world, you just can't win against a determined and very fast, feathered opponent. The emus remained, standing tall and victorious in the Australian outback. Thanks for watching this incredible story. If you enjoyed this piece of bizarre history, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the wild side of the past. See you next time.